job interview is one of the most anxiety-provoking situations most people can find themselves in, even when they go to plan. But what happens when you have your worst interview ever? Our guests share their worst interviews ever in the hope that you will take something from their mistakes to have a more successful interview outcome. Some of the stories are horrific and some are just downright embarrassing. Let's join our host, Kevin O'Reilly, the interview skills coach with over 25 years' experience in the fields of coaching and recruitment. Let's welcome our guests to the show.
Today we have on the show Jillian Haslam, a motivational speaker, coach, and humanitarian, renowned for her resilience and dedication to empowering others. She is a 6-time TEDx speaker and runs 6 charities supporting marginalised communities around the world. And she is the proud winner of the Mother Teresa Memorial International Award. Jillian, you're very, very welcome on the show today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me. It's quite an honor. Thank you again.
Oh, and thank you. And where do we find you today, Jillian?
I am just back in the UK. I came back a day ago. After a very long and lengthy trip to India. And so I'm now back home and in the UK. Yes.
Oh, very good. Very good. And was it for pleasure, the India trip, or work?
No, work. All work. All work. Many people say, you've come to India and you don't even spend half a day with us. You don't spend half a day going shopping or doing anything. But really and truly, I don't have the time. I have so much to do there. It's just going from one meeting to the other and from one charity to the other. And this time it was all about the examinations for all the girls and the skills centers that we have over there, and giving away all their certificates and holding event parties and graduation parties and, just being there for them. That's it.
Sounds extremely fulfilling, but it sounds like a lot of work. 6 charities.
Oh, it's a lot of work. Yes, of course. Just for girls alone, we have 4 centers. We have a beauty training school for girls, all underprivileged girls. We have an English language center. We have a computer center for girls. And we also have a skills training center whereby we teach them English language, interviewing skills, secretarial skills, and all of that. So we have these girls being churned out, a lot of them every year. Some courses are 6 months, some courses are 1 year. But apart from that, we also have this Happy Heart School, which is for toddlers, little ones, and all underprivileged. We have a disabled center for severely disabled people. We have a Mother Teresa International Memorial Center, which is basically for women who can't find work and who have no education at all. And we have an aged center, which is actually more like a food bank where we give away food to, people who can't afford even 1 meal a day. So those are really the 6 centers. Yeah. So it's a lot of work and a lot of running. Yeah.
Wow. And Jillian, we will get into, your reasons behind starting up all of those charities and taking us through. But before we get there, like I do with all of our guests on the show, we always want to find out a little more about them.
A hidden talent. Well, I would just say if it's a hidden talent you're asking for, then I would say it's cooking. Many people think, especially when I go to India and especially when I'm in all these media interviews and I'm on these being dubbed the real Slumdog Millionaire, and I do all these high profile interviews, with all these media concerns. People think, oh, well, she leads quite a life, but actually not. And when I go to India, they say, ma'am, have you tasted this? And can you cook that? And when I say, of course, I can cook every single thing you can cook. And they were like, no, you can't. I was like, yes, I can. But they can't believe. Look at, people don't understand. People look at you right now. They don't look at the journey that you've been through.
Yeah.
And they forget that sometimes when they look at you the way you are today. But for me, no, I can get on the floor and mop somebody's whole floor on my knees, and I have no shame in doing that. I can cook anything, if we have no supplies at home, I can still churn out something.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hidden talent, the hidden talent that I have, which I don't really share with people, you know.
Yeah. And I think that's quite relevant, isn't it, with regards to people looking at you and not seeing that backstory.
Yeah, most often they don't, Kevin. They only look at you for what you have now, what you've achieved now,
Yeah.
what you do now. But sometimes there's so much more to you as a person that people don't look at. And sometimes I have to say, sometimes they gather 7 schools of children into one park, and I have to talk to all these 7 schools. And I say to them, I can take you by the hand right now, and I can take you to the little room where I grew up, where 3,000 people shared 3 toilets. And they go, oh, like that. And I'm like, well, if you think you're poor, I've been much poorer than you, you know. So if I can get out and do things, so can you. And so sometimes they don't understand. They look at you like, very differently. And sometimes you have to bring them back and
Yeah.
show them that you're capable of maybe more than I've achieved. But you have to try. You have to put in the hard work.
Yeah, and I think that's it, isn't it? People don't believe it can be done until they see somebody else doing. And
Correct.
you are that person. When they look at you and they see where you are now, what you have now, and what you do now, and then you go, but I can take you back to where I was with 3,000 other people, and we only had 3 toilets. That's
Yes.
a queer wake up call for them.
Oh, exactly. I always tell them I can take you to the tube well where I filled water. I can take you to the manhole where my sister fell into the manhole and almost lost her life. I can take you to the little room where my parents were, in an 8 by 10 little room where they were just our parents and 5 children. And we all managed in that little room. And even the poorest of the poor children are truly amazed, with that. But you've got to be the correct role model for them. So being a Hollywood actor or actress or a Bollywood actor or actress, in a way, missells
Yeah,
them their lives. In a way, it doesn't give them the truth or the authenticity of who they are and what they can become. So they all think that they can become these rich Bollywood stars, and you'll get the littlest, tiniest of girls who are working in 5 people's houses or 7 people's houses saying, I want to be a Bollywood star. And
yeah.
that's very sad. I try to move them away from that side of life and try to show them that if you do the hard work, you can get there. But if you live a false life, I don't think you're going to get there.
And I think that's difficult even nowadays, isn't it? Trying to help the young people understand that in the UK, everybody wants to be a YouTube star. Everybody wants to be a YouTube star because they think
Yeah.
it's an easy way to make £1 million and become
Yes.
rich. And all they have
Yeah.
to do is talk and play games.
Yeah.
But they don't understand what goes on behind the scenes. They don't understand the marketing. They don't understand the
No.
technology as well. And they don't understand that it's about networking and building up that volume of clients and people coming through that actually want to pay for your service.
Correct.
They don't
And
see that.
exactly, Kevin, it's like a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. They don't
Yeah.
want to do the studies or the research or the hard work, but it's quite easy to put on your camera and just talk or sing or dance or
Mm.
whatever. And that's what they all want to do. But I try to, as much as possible, to get young people away from that and to try to make them understand that you can have just as much, but the sure way to get that is to do the hard work. The
Hmm.
unsure way to do is to follow something where you're not researched and you don't have that knowledge, and you're following a star just because they're Hollywood or a Bollywood star. You're not going to really get anywhere. And
Yeah.
actually, it resonates with most of the young people. They appreciate that. They
Yeah. And I
appreciate that.
think it is that wake up call, isn't it? Just almost like a reality check to allow people to see if you be consistent and persistent and put the hard work in, you can get to where you want to be.
Correct, correct. Absolutely. I've had girls, say to me in this country, "Oh, I go to Croydon every single weekend, and I hope to be picked up there and identified because Kate Moss was picked up there." And I'm like, "Really? This is the kind of thing I get." And I'm like, "All right, then why don't you just keep walking in Croydon all your life? Why don't you go do that, and see for
Yeah.
yourself, if if there are people who can, pick you up, but don't forget that you're walking along with 100 or 500 girls every day.
Yeah.
So be aware that you are stronger than you know you are. You are more intelligent than you believe you are. and you have the ability to be somebody, you know, possibly bigger than Kate Moss, possibly,
Hmm.
more intelligent, but possibly, you know, you could finish school, you could finish your college, you could finish your university, you could become somebody, or people can look up to you and say, you know what, we're very proud of you and what you've achieved, irrespective of where you've come from.
Yeah.
So, and many of them do get it, at least in universities and schools, etc. They do get it. Absolutely.
Well, that's good, isn't it? It's good that they eventually do get that, because it would be a terrible waste of a life to be walking around waiting to be seen like Kate Moss,
Yeah, yeah,
once a
yeah.
once in a lifetime opportunity where you could be someone that can change the world by doing something completely different,
Yes, you can. You can.
and you just don't know what it is yet.
That's why we need more role models and the correct kind of authentic role models for younger people.
Yeah. And I think that word that you used, authentic, that's a very, very difficult word to be found in a person.
Yeah, very. Especially in our world today. That's the problem.
Yeah, yeah. It's used a lot. I think it's almost overused to the point where it's a giveaway. Yes, I am an authentic person, but their behavior or their reactions or their actions or inaction does not demonstrate that they are an authentic person.
You see, Kevin, they're very young and they're very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And the human brain doesn't develop fully until the age of 21 and sometimes till the age of 23. And so at that time, when that brain is kind of, forming into an adult brain, there is so much confusion and so much anxiety. And it's the world that causes this confusion for them.
Yeah.
So, very many, if they get the right parental guidance and the right guidance at school, they are able to follow the right way. But sadly, majority of them who don't have the right guidance, there's poverty, there's money, there's finance, there's family issues, there's
Mm.
sibling rivalry, there's so much to deal with. They all are kind of grappling for survival and trying to be somebody very, very quickly and make it to the top. And
Yeah.
competition, another, like I always say to them, competition stems from a lack mentality. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to understand this. There is good
Mm-hmm.
competition and bad competition. But your competition is stemming from a lack mentality. You have to understand this. If you understand this, then you can give up on competing with your sibling or your friend or your family or whoever it is you're trying to prove yourself to, and try to get out there and actually be yourself. Give yourself time to grow. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And but most of them are lost, Kevin, and it's very sad. And that's why I say that we need more authentic role models.
Mm. It took me a long, long time to come to the realization that it's not that I'm competing with everybody else out there. The only person I'm competing with is who I was yesterday.
Correct.
And I think if more people realize that, they would be happier, but they would also be more successful.
Right. But it's just as they say, the weight of the world kind
Yeah.
of on them. The amount of people, I go to universities and it's like 3 layers of an auditorium of youngsters looking down at me. I'm just that small on a stage, but they're all looking down on me. And I'm thinking, every university and every school I go to is so big. And it's these students that are being churned out like mincemeat out of a mincer.
Yeah.
Look at the competition. Look at, there's no jobs. Look at what they're going through. That's why we have to be very authentic with them. We have to tell them the truth and we have to lay it out so that they understand it.
And that's it, isn't it? Once you become aware of something, at least then you can do something about it.
Correct. Yeah,
Instead of having that
absolutely.
fantasy of being a Bollywood star. Yes,
Correct.
somebody will be a Bollywood star within that university, absolutely, but not everybody will be.
Yeah, and that's what I say to them. Sometimes it's not trying to be more, it's trying to do more. You
Mm,
just have to do a little more to be who you want to be.
yeah,
Don't try to be somebody you're not.
yeah,
You're striving to try to be this somebody. but you're not putting in the hard work. It's the doers that actually rise to the top.
It is.
That's what I try to make them understand. A lot of my slides are got images, but of absolute authenticity and guidance towards questioning their inner souls of who they are and why they're here and what they should do. And that's one of the reasons why I got the advertiser paper newspaper gave me the award for speaking at the maximum number of schools in the country,
Wow.
because that's what I try to do. I try to stay away from all the normal stuff and focus on them and what they need to be.
And that's the future, isn't it? Really, it's our children that are coming through will be the future. They'll be the future
Yeah.
doctors, the future our pilots, the future cleaners, the future everything.
And Kevin, that's actually the truth, and scary in a way, because now with even AI, more young people are reading less.
Yeah.
They don't like to read. They don't want to communicate because everything is, on phones and iPads, etc. And what we need to make them understand is that, yes, but the more you use AI, the less you use your brain.
Yeah.
So the more you're going to use these platforms and these facilities, it's fine, but you're not going to read anymore. You're not going to do the work anymore. So the idea is, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yes.
Understand that your neurology works with the way of how much you think and how much thought you put into it. That's how fast it develops. Now, if you don't think and you don't use it, it's going to shrivel up. And I show them two human brains of a study that was done in a nunnery. And I showed them the human brain of an alcoholic who hardly used his brain, and the human brain of a nun in a nunnery. And then I take them to the next slide and I show them, when a postmortem was done, this is the brain of an alcoholic and this is the brain of a nun. And even though she's a nun, she's not a doctor or an engineer or everything, but every single day she got up and she used her brain to do different things, to help different people, to learn the Bible, to learn religion, and tried to do more and more and more. But her brain is 3/4 used to the fullest and the maximum, but the alcohol's brain is only used one small quarter. And then they are like, oh my God, that's true. So that's the kind of examples I try to show them.
There's definitely power in visuals, isn't there?
Oh my gosh, great power. It's only when you show them the visuals that they come to life, because otherwise they'll just sit there and keep listening to you like a lecture. And I say, I understand how you feel, because I was at boarding school and every Friday we had a speaker and I hated it, because every Friday we had to sit there for an hour and listen. I'm not going to do that to you. And they start laughing.
It's funny, but I go into schools pretty much use the same line as well. I try to make my workshops or my speeches as engaging as possible, because I
Yes.
remember sitting in those classes or sitting in that auditorium, looking up and listening, going, "This is boring me. What has this got to do with me?"
Exactly.
So we make the visuals, we interact with the audience, we speak more, we reach out, we get people up on stage, we use balloons, we use sticky notes, we use all sorts of resources to try and engage
Yeah.
the mind, instead of just sitting and listening, because as you quite rightly said, it's very different when you're engaged and when you're actually using your brain to think, as opposed to just sitting and doing very little.
Absolutely. You've got to engage them, and especially if they are young people, you've got to engage them. You've got to keep them engaged, so that at least 2 of the 5 messages you're giving away stays with them. So sometimes I can go for a speech for an hour and I can be kept for 7 hours, because
Yeah.
after the speech all of them want to speak to you privately or separately, or they ask you to do more talks in another block or building. And most of the time, if I have the time, I always agree. Kevin, I don't ask for anything extra. I just say, yes, of course, because if it's going to help them, then why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're there, you might as well also.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And lots of
Yeah,
people, it's what I find anyway, lots of people are a little bit afraid to put their hand up in a large room for the fear of
correct.
sounding a little silly.
Yes.
So they will come to you afterwards and ask lots and lots of questions, which is completely okay, because I have been that person sitting in that room not wanting to put my hand up and stand out above the crowd as such, or ask a silly question. But now I'm at the stage in life where I'm the first hand up to ask the silly question and it's almost like an allowance for then everybody else to ask a question.
Yes, absolutely. And I absolutely resonate with what you're saying. I suffered with a nervous disposition up to the age of 14. I fell down up to the age of 14. I kept falling down because of the poverty that we had been through, the loss of 4 siblings, living in a slum up to the age of 17, sharing, as I told you, 3 toilets with almost 3,000 people from 5 or 6 different buildings in the slum. We grew up in more than harsh circumstances, and that changed me as a person. I I suffered with a nervous disposition. I fell down. My sisters still laugh at me to this day, and they cannot come to the understanding or the belief that I turned to public speaking. They are in they're in awe. They're like it can be any of us, but not you. It cannot be you, because that's how bad it was for me. I could hardly speak, and I cried for anything. It was like that. But Toastmasters was the answer.
Yeah, yeah. And I do rant and rave about Toastmasters because I am also a Toastmaster, and I
Yes,
understand the benefits that has given me. For example, we would not be here today doing this chat had it not
absolutely.
been for Toastmasters. And I
Yes,
would recommend
absolutely.
anybody and everybody who has that want or need for public speaking or want even to share their message, join Toastmasters. See where it leads.
Yes,
You would be absolutely shocked where
yes.
it leads.
It's a total transformation. Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
that's true.
it really is. It really is.
Yeah.
Jillian, you've had a very weird, wonderful, and varied career, just to say the least. But there has to be a point in your career where you've thought, you know what, this is this is me. I've made this. This I've made it. Like a real high point within your career. Do you have a high point?
Kevin, I would say I have several high points. For example, as you've mentioned, winning the Mother Teresa International Memorial Award, I never ever dreamt of receiving such an award because when I was a little girl living in the slum, every Friday we used to all queue up and, with all the beggars in the area, the poor people, and maybe 1,000, 2,000 people all queue up, and we used to get to one gate, and Mother Teresa's nuns or sisters of charity would give us all a bag of milk, bag of powdered milk, a packet of biscuits, and sometimes a bag of clothes which they had got from people abroad. And we used to never ever miss that queue, and we used to stand from 7 in the morning to, I don't know, probably 4 in the evening or 5 in the evening just to get that. And she used to come on her rounds and, just check up that the Sisters of Charity were doing their job. And one day she was there and she just patted me on the cheek and said, "Next, that's it, take your stuff and now next." And then years later, I received the Mother Teresa International Memorial Award, and I was allowed 5 minutes at Mother House, where her body lies today, in her room. And they opened this iron gate for me and allowed me in her room and told me and left me. So the head sister said, "You can spend 3 to 5 minutes there." And I walked into her room and I just saw a single bed, 2 saris, a pair of slippers, a toothbrush, and a Bible. And it was the most magical moment in my life. I've received several awards and even a Kirkus Star review for my book and everything. But that moment was truly special. And when I came out of the room, I said to the head sister, "I don't know if I deserve this. I don't
Mm.
even know why I deserve this award, and I don't know why I'm here today or achieved all this." And she said to me, "I could give you many explanations, but I'm only going to leave you with Mother's line, which is Mother Teresa's line. But
Mhm.
she said, sometimes you become a pencil in the hands of God, where people,
Mm.
where God just picks you up and you don't have any more control over your life. You're just led to do what you have to do." And so for me, that's the most special moment that I have
Wow.
had.
Wow. That must have been surreal moment to say
Very.
the least.
Yeah, and just hours before that, I was led. You can watch the YouTube video on my channel. I was led down the streets with the police guard and police in the front and police on both sides with the award marching down all the streets of Calcutta from St. Teresa's Church to Mother House. And all of that was surreal and amazing and great. It was a wonderful day, but it was that one moment in her little room, which was the size of a 6-seater dining table, that really spoke to me.
Wow. I can't. I'm trying to picture that. I'm trying to picture that little tiny room and all of those
Yeah.
little things in her room and her bed. I don't know what I would do if I get into there. And I think it's the silence potentially when you're there and
Yeah.
you're in that
And no
sort
one
of
is allowed
presence.
in. No one is ever allowed into that room. It's under a big padlock and an iron gate. No one is allowed in, but they allowed me in for 3 to 5 because I had won the award. And it's not just allowing me in, it's just the presence of something that I felt in that room that was beyond anything I had ever felt.
Yeah. It was more than you.
Yes. Yes, you can put it that way. Yes.
Wow. Okay. Now for the sake of balance, Jillian, we always like to ask a question around a pivotal or worst moment within your career so far. And I'm sure that because of your varied career, that you're going to have at least one of those moments that you'd like to share with us.
The worst moment in my career. Well, I could tell you about a funny moment. I could tell you about, there's so many moments that happen in the day in the life of a public speaker. But I think for me, so many moments that happen, and some of them are quite personal, so I won't share them with you, but I'll tell you about one. There's sometimes when you're getting to a speech, and it's a very, very high profile speech. It was at a bank, and it was as you get there and in your hurry of packing and leaving and everything, you realize that I haven't brought my shoes and I'm in my trainers because I'm traveling by train. And you're thinking, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? And there's no time. You either need to get on stage or you need to go to the closest market and buy yourself a pair of shoes. And in London, that's not easily done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? So I think the most embarrassing moment is when I had to walk in with this grand introduction and all of these people seated, in a very big bank, one of the biggest banks in the UK, the whole auditorium full, and there is me in my trainers. And I remembered part of my training where they say, remember that people do not. There comes a time when you have to remember that people are not interested in what you're wearing. Only for the first 7 seconds are they interested in what you're wearing and how you look and whatever. And it was raining, so I was looking like a wet cat. But anyway, and I was in trainers. And I remembered what I was taught during the training, that don't worry about this. It's only for the first 7 seconds. People are interested in what you have to tell them. And people are interested in that speech that you've got to deliver. And you've got to deliver that with confidence that will take their minds away from how you look to what you give them. And I had to talk to myself. That's why I say self-talk is so important. I had to talk myself into this belief that I've got to deliver. And I got a standing ovation. So I did something right, and I just apologized for my trainers. I said I had hurt my ankle and I had to be in trainers, but I'm truly sorry. And then they say, would you like to sit down? I was like, no, I'm okay. But there you go.
Oh, that's very good. That's very good. I'm sure there's lots you've taken away from that moment and all moments that you've been through with regards to that. But
Yes.
if there was one little lesson to come out of that, what would that wee lesson be?
I think the lesson would be, you know what, Kevin, I came back home and I did a speech on a speaker's bag.
Okay.
And I said to myself, from today, I will have a bag as a speaker and I will not touch it. It's like a doctor's bag.
Okay.
that a doctor picks up when he goes for his house to house,
Mm-hmm.
consultations. And I said, today I'm going to prepare the speaker's bag, and in it is going to go every single thing I need, especially an extra pair of shoes, so that this never happens to me again. And like I said, there's been so many times when you've missed things, you've forgotten things, simple things like your chargers. And sometimes you go and you have an Apple laptop and they don't have Apple, they don't work with Apple. You got to
Yeah.
get those different connectors and all of those things. And even for girls, pardon me for saying, but even tampons, you've got to make sure that you have that in your speaker's bag so that you don't miss out anything and you're not at a loss, because you know that even if I leave in a hurry, my speaker's bag comes to my aid. That's what I learned from that.
And I think your quote that that you enjoy, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. I think
Yes.
that sums that up really, really well, because you're right, having a bag, almost like a go bag, ready to go, is so important, because it
So
removes a lot of pressure from you, because you
correct.
don't have to think about it. You don't have to think, do I have, what do I need? It's there in your bag. All you're doing is double checking it. And
Correct.
you're not running around your house looking for a charger. You're not running around your house looking for your left
No,
shoe. You're not, it's there, it's in the bag, it's ready to go. And it's about
absolutely.
removing as much as you can from the day, same as an interview. It's about all the preparation you do beforehand, that you don't have to do anything on that day except turn up.
You know, there's a greater lesson here as well, Kevin. I don't know if you've heard of the conservation or the saving of mental energy.
Yeah.
So a lot of these big people who have been very successful, for example, the Facebook owner, he he wears sweatshirts, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know that he wears sweat. The CEO, he's a young guy and he wears sweatshirts all the time. And he does that because he can just pick up a sweatshirt in the morning and
Yeah.
put it on and not bother about a suit, which tie to match, what to do, which suit to wear, what to do. And they do that primarily. We think, oh my God, what a shabby dresser. But no, it's not about that. They conserve energy. There's another guy called, I think, uh, Mo Godard. He was at the top level in Google. He does the same thing. He wears the same t-shirts, the same kind of t-shirts, and he's got tons of them. But he explains that I wear this because it just say it conserves mental energy, and that energy I can use on other more important matters. So there is a reason for that. So this bag is also, as you said, a reason. If you The more stuff you get done beforehand, the more you have to worry about, and then you can use that same mental energy on your speech or your delivery or your
Yeah.
interview.
Yeah. And I'm exactly the same, believe it or not. I had read what you had just discussed many years ago,
Yeah,
and I have this shirt here that I'm
yeah,
wearing currently. It's a beige shirt,
yeah.
button collars, buttons down the front, and I have five different colors of this shirt, and it
Mm,
doesn't matter which color I pick. They're in my wardrobe, and I just take it out. I have wore the same color of jeans and the same shoes every day, because it
absolutely.
is
Yeah,
one less thing that I have to think about.
correct.
Actually, it's many less things that I have to think about. And
True.
it's almost like an identifier or a uniform to me, because it's comfortable. I
Yeah,
feel confident and powerful in this outfit. And it's the same with going for that interview. You have to feel comfortable and you have to feel powerful and confident when you're going into that interview, because 9 times out of 10, the interviewers can feel if you're not confident. So you
oh
wear
yes,
something
and
that makes you feel confident.
mm, that's why it's important also for for people who are interviewing, etc., to listen to podcasts and to listen to interviews by Mark Zuckerberg or
Mm.
Mo Godart and all of these brilliant guys, because they teach us something. They've got to where they've got to for reasons, and some of the times the tips and the tricks that you learn from them are highly valuable. Actually,
Oh, they are. They are. And like we discussed prior to this, is about mirroring and matching people, especially successful people,
yeah,
because they've learned how to behave and they've learned good, successful behaviors. So why would you not look at those people and
absolutely.
go, I'm going to use this and I'm going to use that? because if it
True.
works for them, it could work for me.
It could work for you. Yeah. But again, like I say, there's a time and a place for everything. So if I say Mo Godard does this or Mark Zuckerberg does this, I don't expect you to get into your sweatshirt and go for an interview. So please don't get me wrong. I'm trying to tell you that there is a time and a place for everything. For an
Yes.
interview, yes, definitely, you do get dressed up, and it's important that you understand, the importance of, uh, a well-organized person, a well-dressed person, all of those kind of things. But it's also equally important to understand that when you get up the ladder and when you are given a place of responsibility and a title, you have got to understand that the less you do, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it is about conserving that mental energy, as well as a reduction on decisions that you don't have to make, that that are not that important.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that we have a certain amount of decisions that we can handle within a day,
Yeah.
and deciding which tie goes with which shirt or which shoes go with which blouse is not one of those decisions that are very important in the
No,
grand scheme of it all. Even when
I
we
learned
talk
that
back with your
at the bank
shoes,
interview. Yeah, I learned that. I honestly learned a lesson there, Kevin. And yes, your business image does matter.
yeah,
But I know girls who would take 3 to 4 hours to get ready, but I know guys who would take 7 hours to get ready. Yeah, it's true, it's true. But that's where you've got to apply your decision making skills, and you've got to understand what's going to serve you and what isn't going to serve you.
yes, absolutely. That's it, isn't it? It's that trade-off of all of this time and effort. Will this give me a benefit? And if so, how much of a benefit? And if it doesn't outweigh the time and effort, then it's not worth doing.
Absolutely, Kevin. And if I hadn't researched and really prepared my speech and my keynote to, such high profile people, and I was in trainers, that was it for me as
Yeah,
a speaker.
yeah.
But you see, preparation can actually do all the work for you
Oh yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. And I love that preparation can actually do all the work for you. That's a really
Yes,
lovely way to think about it.
yes, it can. It can. That's why you must never fail to prepare. That's why I put the quote on your form
Yeah,
that, if you fail to prepare, I mean, if you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail. And that
yeah.
is true. Preparation is key to everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree with you. Completely agree. But for me, there's one thing I would say is a real challenge or really difficult to prepare for, and that is you as a person having particular values. Now, I know that we can do lots of looking within and self-reflection to understand what our values are and do a little bit of work into that. But there has to be a point where when you look at your own values and you're potentially hiring someone or you're looking to work with people, that you look and you can almost feel their values as well. So there must be a value that you have that you hold really dear to you. So my inner core value is integrity. Every other value, anything I do, stems from integrity. What would yours be, Jillian, do you think?
I think with mine, Kevin, it has to be authenticity. I remember my first job and my first interview was with Bank of America. And there were 250 girls for the interview. And I was so excited. I saw the advertisement in the newspaper, and I was already buying my car and my house and everything without even going for the first interview. I was young and naive and stupid. But I went there for the interview, and they handed me, one of these test boards with a form and a pen, and said, "Take a seat." And when I looked into that hall, I just saw a sea of desks with every girl just writing. It was like around 250 girls in the room. And I asked the lady, "Are you sure I'm at the right place?" She said, "Yes." I said, "No, I'm here for the job for the executive secretary to the CEO." It was my first job. And she said, "Yes, you are. So are they. Take a seat." So I took a seat. And it was 6 months of interviewing. And it was like meeting every senior individual in the bank. It was test after test after test that they gave you. all the general knowledge tests and all the IQ tests and all the maths tests, and it just went on. And I said to my dad, I don't really think I'm going to get this interview. But we went from 150 to 100 and then 50 and then 25. And we came down to 3 girls. And I was one of them. And I told my dad, I don't really think I'm going to get it. But then they put us all 3 in front of the CEO himself. And I only knew that he was the most feared individual on the planet. That's the only thing I knew of him. So when I sat in front of him, as I said, I suffered with a nervous disposition. I couldn't talk up to the age of 14, but I wanted that job so badly, because I had lost my mom to cancer and I was looking after my 2 little ones all on my own. And I needed the money, I needed the job. And so I just told him all about my family life, all about me, how I had taken over my 2 little siblings and were looking after them. And I just went blabbling and talking. And he never said a word, Kevin, just never said a word. And at the end of the interview, I looked at him and I stopped talking. And he looked me straight in the eye and I said, have I got the job? And he really made eye contact and he said, I'll let you know. You may leave. And I came out, burst out crying outside the bank. And I said to my dad, I don't think I've got the job. I really don't think I've got it. It's finished. It's over. And a week later, there was an envelope in the post, and that was the appointment letter. And when I went back and met him, he said, you sell yourself really well. Your authenticity shone through, Jillian. That's what I got from you. That's what I said. And I see that with myself with everything. Even when I'm talking to young people, I just try to be who I am. I never try to be who I'm not. Many people ask me, are you a celebrity? I say, absolutely not. I hate that word. Please don't call me that. I am just a normal girl, just like you.
And that's it, isn't it? It's probably that grounding that you've had with regards to your authenticity and all of your experiences that you've been through in your life that really makes you who you are.
Yes.
Jillian, I don't think I've ever met anybody like you.
Thank you.
So that is completely authentic for me in the sense of I am sitting here in awe of some of the stories you're telling, going, wow, like genuinely wow. It is inspiring to hear some of these stories. I mean, even that 250 individuals all sitting writing in this one room, and you got the job.
That's how hard it is in India, Kevin. That's how hard it is. And that's why I tell even students here, of course, you're in the running for interviews with 250 or 500 people, but that's always been the case. It's even now, and it's probably got a little more difficult. But the belief you have to have in yourself is what will get you through. Be yourself, be authentic, and prepare and research. And always remember that what they're looking for is your confidence. And I always compare them with 2 people. I say, listen, there'll be one person who hasn't prepared because they think they know it all and they come from a very, very high profile university. And I worked for the graduate recruitment of RBS, so I know they'll come and they'll say, you know, I'm from this top university and I know it all. And so I really didn't need to prepare. That's overconfidence.
Yeah.
Sorry, but you'll have another girl who'll come or another boy and they'll say, you know what? I've prepared and prepared and prepared and I've done my best. And that's what gives me my confidence. That will shine through.
Yeah.
That will shine through.
Absolutely.
Always.
Yeah. And I think I think it's almost an attitude then when you look at that. And who would I rather have working for me? Is it the person who thinks they know it all so they don't do any extra work? Or is it the person who absolutely does the best they can? It may not be to the same level as the first person, but they are trying everything, they are working hard, and they are determined. Well, I know who I would pick. Most definitely the second person.
Absolutely, Kevin. You know, I give them this example. I said, you know, there was once an interview going on, and both girls and both boys were asked one question. So you were working for a nightclub, a very, very, very busy nightclub, and I made you the manager. And at 1 o'clock in the morning, the toilet is absolutely full and blocked. What would you do? I asked both of you. One girl says, oh, I would ring the building management and I would call everybody and I would try to find a cleaner and I would do my best to make sure that the clients are taken care of. And the other one said, I would just get a stick or a broom or anything and I would clean it myself. That person gets the job. That's humility. That's what
Absolutely.
people are looking for. That is servant
Absolutely.
leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? It's funny you give that example, Jillian. I have been there myself. As a manager of a large retail organization many years ago, the toilets do get blocked up and there's not much you could do about it. And I roll my sleeves up and I get stuck in.
Yes,
And if
yes,
nothing else, it shows a really good example to everybody else who
yes.
is who's employed. And I don't think from that day or days after that, I didn't have to ask anybody to do that because they see me doing it and they thought, well, this is the normal.
Yeah,
I'm just going to do that anyway.
absolutely. They're very, very senior individuals in the world. Even there's a lady on Dragon's Den, and one day her employee walked into the toilet and she had a tissue and she was wiping all the toilet seats. And the employee said to her, "Ma'am, why are you doing that?" And she said, "Do you have a problem? I own this company. I need to keep it clean. I need to keep it well."
Wow.
So you've got to learn from this. You've got to learn from these people.
Absolutely. And it is those little tiny things that make a huge difference,
Absolutely. And
especially in an
this is
organization.
what senior management are looking for. This is why Kevin and I excelled at Bank of America and even at RBS. I excelled because they saw that I was willing to do anything. And I always said that at the interview. Even when I came to this country, I said, "You can give me 2 jobs. I can do 2 jobs."
Hmm.
And he said, "Oh, Jillian, it doesn't happen in this country." I said, "Well, it happened in India. I had 2 jobs, 2 roles, and I did 2 jobs. And yet they did give me 2 jobs here. And I excelled at it because I wanted to do the hard work. I wanted to show them that I was not proud and I was willing to do anything it took to get to the top. That's what they're
That's the
looking for.
person that's the people you want working for you, Jillian. And that's an attitude more than anything else. You want
Correct.
people like that who are willing to do what it takes to get to where they need to be or where they want to be.
Correct. And that's what I say to them, having your resume in, chronological order, or
Mm.
content skills or functional skills or adaptive skills or whatever it is, or you want to, place it, or functional order or whatever. It's all fine. At the end of the day, people are looking to buy you.
Yeah,
You have to sell yourself
yeah,
accordingly.
yeah,
You're the salesperson there. You're selling yourself.
yeah. And I think that is one of the most difficult parts of any interview
Yeah,
is the selling of themselves. They can
correct.
sell what they've done previously because they maybe have
Mm,
lots and lots of examples, but it's the part where they go, tell us a little bit about you and why do you want to work here?
yeah,
That question is where most people freeze and they don't know
yes,
how to answer.
yeah, yeah.
And that's just selling. That is just selling. But if you don't know
That is
how to
selling.
do that,
That's why I try to get them to perfect their elevator speech
yeah,
really, really to the T. And
yeah,
that's why I say, if you're a graduate, then don't get into details. Start with your last education.
yeah,
If you are somebody who basically, your experience is about maybe 1 to 10 years, then you start from the moment you graduated. And if you are a person with 10 years plus experience, then please start speaking from your last management job. You don't need to go
hmm,
to the very back. This is the kind of training they need
yeah.
to be able to
I,
sell themselves.
I have actually created a little model, Jillian, called the T model. It's funny because you just mentioned T. It's called the
Yeah.
T model, TEA. Today, earlier, and then after. So they talk about why they're here, who they are, why they're here, and why they've applied for the job. That's the today and what they're currently doing. The earlier is what got them to where they are today. And as you quite rightly said, we don't need to go back to when they were in primary
No,
school. We need to go back to where it is relevant to the position
correct.
and what skills or experiences or certifications that will be relevant to the current position.
Yeah.
And then the aspirations or the after. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Where do you want to go in 5 years' time?
Yeah.
And creating this little model, the T model, has actually reduced the amount of questions that can be asked by an interviewer during the interview.
Yes.
So tell me about your experience. Well, that's the earlier. Tell me why you're here. That's the today. Tell me what you're currently doing. That's the today. Tell me what you're going to be or where you're going to be in 5 years' time. That's the after. That's the
Yeah,
aspiration. So you're almost getting rid of all of those little superficial questions, important
yeah,
questions, but superficial, and you're answering them all.
yeah,
And then we can get on to actually asking the right questions to find out if you're the right fit.
yeah. And Kevin, it's so important for them to understand and to realize that it's the what's in it for me that the company is looking for. The company is primarily looking of how can you be the solution to their issues.
Yeah.
They have this vacancy, they have this gap, but how can you be the solution? They don't want to know what you've done in the past and what testimonials. It's all great. How can you position yourself as being a solution to the issue that is in front of you? The issue is the gap, this job. Now, how can you be that solution? This is how I like them to think.
Absolutely. I would completely agree with you because you have to be the solution. And what I always tend to find is sitting on interview panels, some of what goes through my head when I'm sitting looking at the person, thinking, can I work with this person for 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week? Is this person going to bring something to this organization, or are they going to bring an attitude that's not going to fit? Are they going to bring something that isn't going to work?
Yeah.
And that to me is almost what an interviewer is sitting thinking as they are going through their questions, because that's what I think. Because you are obviously skilled, qualified, and experienced if you're sitting in the interview. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
wasting my time with you if you weren't.
You've been selected for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it is then down to the cultural fit as such. Do you have the right attitude? Do you show the right behaviors? Are you authentic? Will you do what you say you're going to do? Because we can lie with our tongues, but we find it really difficult to lie with what we do.
Body language says it all.
Yeah,
Anyways.
absolutely, absolutely. Or even that in action, it's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
difficult to lie with that. But we can lie with our tongues quite easily.
yeah, yeah, of course. We do it
Yeah,
every day, don't we?
probably. Yeah. Well, if if you're going into any sort of interviews and you're making these suggestions to people, especially to the girls whenever you go over to see them in India, there must be certain things you would advise them absolutely never, ever, ever do. Okay? Do you have three top red flags, is what we like to call them here, of what you must not do when you're in the interview?
Well, I would say the first thing is you don't, if you're asked for a refreshment, refuse it.
Okay.
Don't accept it. That's the first thing. Don't take a seat unless somebody asks you, to take a seat. And definitely understand that your business image does matter. Because it's in the first 7 seconds that it's true. It's in the first 7 seconds that the interviewer has 50% is decided he wants to hire you. And that's that thing about human beings. They've already decided whether they want to hire you or not. So be aware of little things like your smile, shake hands, strongly introduce yourself clearly, do make eye contact, don't look away because that shows you're nervous. Like I said, your dress and your business image. What else can I think about? And don't accept a refreshment.
Why is that one, Jillian? Why is the don't accept a refreshment one for you?
I think it just shows manners, and that you don't want them to waste any more time with ordering a refreshment for you or going and getting you anything.
Oh, okay.
And you should have it all before you come, so you're fully prepared when you get there.
So you would suggest bringing your own bottled water?
Well, if you need it, but
Okay.
in all possibility, Kevin, most of us are well versed in. We're quite okay to do without water for half an hour or 45 minutes or 1 hour. It's not that. Usually interviews we already have water on the table most of the time.
Okay.
With a jug or whatever.
Okay.
But if you're offered a tea or a coffee or anything like that, then my advice would be, you don't use it. You don't accept it, you know.
I
And of course, don't say things like, you know, I applied because I need the job to pay my bills. Don't say that. Always say, you know, I reviewed the job description and I think the role would be a great next step in my career because, and you can say because, you know, or I don't say I applied for the job because I need to work, I need to pay my bills, kind of thing. Don't say things like I applied because your office is very close to where I live. Don't say that. Don't say things like I applied because I read that your offer has offer, you know, your offer includes great benefits. Don't say that.
Mm,
Or I applied because I have to work. I have to work.
mm.
And many
It sounds
people,
like all of those things that you're suggesting not to say is
yeah,
something that you, as in the person, the interviewer, is for them, in a sense.
yeah,
And it's
and like
nothing to do with what you'd said previously about being the solution to the company.
correct. And you know, things like, oh, I applied for the job because I have a sick relative at home. No.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
be always positive. Say all the positive things that you can, you know. I
Yeah.
reviewed the job description and I think that I would be, you know, this is the next step in my career growth because whatever, for the reason I've heard great things about the company and I'm also very interested in the problems your business is solving, such as whatever the problems are or
Yeah.
the causes, and I can offer my skill set and I'm a solution
Yeah.
for for what I think your business is facing, the problems, and I think I can help with the solutions. That's what they
Yeah.
want to hear.
Become the solution as such.
Correct. That's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Always be the solution. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's a really very simple message for everybody out there, is just be the solution. Don't be the problem. Don't be another
Yeah.
problem. Be the
Yeah.
solution.
And as they say, even with public speaking, Kevin, you got to walk away with leaving in a person's mind one message and one message only. When you
Hmm.
walk away, they can never remember everything,
Yeah.
but you can give them one message, and that message would be that candidate said they want to be the solution to my problems. That will
Yeah.
that will stick with them.
Yeah.
Really?
Absolutely will, because
Yeah,
that's what they're looking for.
correct.
They're looking for solution-minded people.
People. Yeah. And even if you've given like, you know, solutions that are, of course, I hope that you've done your research and you talk intelligently. But even if you don't, and you've picked up some words from them and, you know, you feed it back to them or you talk, but the fact that you want to be that solution to
Yeah.
them is what will resonate.
Yeah. And that's it, isn't it? It's the intention, because people can feel how you make them feel.
Correct. Yeah.
And we can do that. We can do that with our body language. We can do that with our words. We can do that with our pace, our tone. We can do that through just having that conversation. But people pick up on passion really easily. They also pick up
Correct.
when it's not there.
Oh, yes, of course. Very easily picked up. Very easily
Okay.
picked up, especially for people who are interviewing you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We like to think we know what we're doing sometimes.
Correct. And sometimes, you know, you can, if you're researched and you do your research well and you prepare really well, you'll be surprised as to how you can come out of an interview feeling great
Yeah,
about all this, you know?
absolutely. Jillian, thanks. We're going to change pace ever so quickly here, okay? And we're
Okay.
going to go into our quick fire round. So
Okay.
this round, for all of our new listeners, this is where we ask the guest a series of questions and they have to answer with yes, no, or pass. Okay.
Okay.
So Jillian, are you ready?
Of
Okay.
course.
Is it acceptable to wear pajama bottoms to a Zoom interview?
No.
Is it okay to bribe the interviewers?
No.
Is it wise to ask the interviewer for a selfie together at the end?
No.
Should a candidate smile during the interview?
Yes.
Should you answer the first question with a dramatic pause for effect?
Should you answer? Yes.
Should women wear high heels to an interview?
No.
Is it acceptable to ask the interviewer how much they make?
No.
Should you high five the interviewer at the end?
No.
Should a candidate swear during the interview?
No,
Is it acceptable to bring your mother or other parental figure to the interview for moral support?
no.
Okay, that's them all done. How was that, Jillian?
I thought it was great questions. I loved them. I
Yeah,
thought they were very, very catchy little um, gold nuggets. That's the way I would put it, because I
yeah.
think somebody listening to you could learn so much from just those rapid fire questions.
Those questions I get asked potentially once a week from clients. This is why those questions are there, because it's also a nice little insight into how you see interviews and interviewers yourself. And there's some of the questions there. Was there any particular question that you found, that's a weird question, why is it being asked?
High heel shoes.
Hmm.
I think again, I go back to my trainer thing. So you mean you can wear proper shoes. Not very many people are comfortable in high heel shoes because they have knee problems and ankle problems and back problems. But I think you can wear a flat pair of shoes very nicely as long as it's neat and tidy and you can carry yourself very well. So, for example, if you're a very tall girl, you don't need high heels. You know, if you're a small girl like me, you need high heels. You know, it's like that.
I think the person that originally asked me this question was working in a particular industry that there was almost an unspoken rule that high heels were part of the unofficial uniform.
I know many companies have all these rules, Kevin. I've seen them so much in my career, and sometimes, pardon me for saying, it's ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
sometimes it's not fair also on people who are there. And I'll tell you off the recording, but I've known of some crazy things that people are forced to do, and it's just not right, you know.
Yeah. And I know that the question is about high heels, but I've also heard the question asked about different types of men's shoes as well.
Yes, yes, different types of men's shoes,
Yeah.
different haircuts,
Yeah.
perfumes,
Yeah.
women's perfumes.
Yeah.
Women get highly offended, you know, if you say you don't wear a very strong perfume to work. It's very personal.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that many companies put out in their rules and regulations, and some of it is understandable,
Yeah.
and some of it is just not. It's unfair, I believe personally,
Yeah.
because people have problems, and you do have to understand that.
Yeah. I used to work for an organization many years ago that had within their uniform guidance is that all women had to have their hair tied back if it was long. They had to only wear clear nail varnish. They could only wear rings if they were engagement rings or wedding rings. They weren't allowed to wear earrings, and their makeup had to be little to none, but they had to wear makeup. Guys weren't allowed to have beards. The guys weren't allowed to have tattoos on show if they had them. And they always had to wear long trousers and long sleeves.
Yeah, I know. I've been working for organizations where if a tattoo was only seen, they were not accepted. It was a no from the very start.
It is sad though. It is very, very sad that you
Yes.
can't be your authentic self in an interview, that you may potentially have to wear those long sleeves if you have a
Because
tattoo
you're
of the
judging a
arm.
book by its cover, isn't it?
That's
That's
it.
really what
That's
you're doing.
exactly it.
Yeah.
And you always have to remember who the interviewers are. Usually senior people from an era long gone.
Yeah,
They
that's
don't
true.
always have moved forward.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, and again, this is all situational in the sense of all industries are different. However, fail to prepare to fail.
Yeah.
Do your research. Look on their social media. If you see people with tattoos out, then potentially that will be okay. If you don't see any tattoos anywhere, then potentially that's not okay.
Yeah, I think it's a balance. You can't go in thinking I am who I am and I will do what I like and I will dress how I like and I will say what I like and I will behave in any which way I like and they have to give me that job. No, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. But That's what I say to the young people. I know you live in a world where I am me, just accept me. Sorry, doesn't happen.
Yep.
All that you will be told across the table is, we'll let you know in time. Thank you for coming, but
Yeah.
you'll never ever be called back. So understand that. But there's a fine line. There are things you can do and things you can't. That's it.
Yeah. And I think that's important, isn't it, for everyone to realize, yes, you can be your authentic self. However, to get your foot in the door, you sometimes have to jump through a few fairy hoops, and then you can be completely yourself when you get in, if that is the case. Because if you're not even your authentic self in the interview and you're pretending to be someone you're not, by the time you get in, you're afraid then that that mask is going to slip.
Yeah.
And it will slip
And
eventually,
it will
because
slip, of
that's what
course.
happens.
Yeah,
And then it's a waste of time for everybody involved.
exactly, Kevin. And especially when you go for big jobs and you put through a series of interviews with several senior managers, and and then the top guy meets you last and all of that. But through all this test, they do all these analysis and assessments, and then all these other people have their say on you. Somebody is bound to uncover who you are. So
Yeah.
it's just best to be you.
Yeah.
And I always say to young people that there are these very special words that Ralph Emerson, I think his name is, who once said that the big jobs usually go to the men who prove their ability to outgrow small ones.
Hmm.
The big jobs usually go to the men who prove their ability to outgrow the small ones. And
Yeah.
if you can keep that in mind, that job is yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
what
just
you need to do.
make yourself so attractive for that position that it'd be hard to turn it down.
Yeah, keep the company in mind.
Yeah.
They're going to pay you. So what are you going to give them in return for that remuneration? What are you going to
Absolutely.
offer them?
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
solutions do you have? It's like a plumber. If you come to my house and you can't repair my pipe, I don't need you.
Yeah.
Why do I need you? Same thing.
Yeah. I could not repair my pipe on my own. I don't need a plumber who can't repair it either.
Exactly. Exactly. So why would a company hire you if you can't be a solution to their problem? You see?
Well, I think there's a thread that's running through this interview here, Jillian. It's definitely be the solution.
Correct.
Be the
Absolutely.
solution. Okay. Jillian, we're going to get to the question why everybody has tuned in, actually. And it's to hear about your worst job interview ever. So, Jillian, over to you.
My worst job interview, to be honest, many people would see it as my worst job interview, but to me, now with hindsight and time, I see it as my best job interview. But of course, at that time, I saw it as my worst job interview. And that was the same interview I was telling you about at Bank of America, where there were 250 girls. It was a nightmare. I had to keep coming back for interview after interview, meeting all the senior managers in the banks, assessment after assessment, test after test. And it was by far the worst interview I've ever been for. And yet, after I got the job and after the CEO, offered me the job, and I returned the appointment letter the first time, and I said, no, I don't want the job, because I had heard very many things about the person I was going to work for. And then he called me in, and then he doubled the offer, and I took the job because I thought it's too much money. I cannot refuse this. I need it. And I went in there with the nervous person I was, and all I said to him was, I only ask one thing of you, please don't shout at me. I can do whatever you want. I'll do it 100 times over, but just don't shout at me because I'm very nervous. And he understood that, and he did that. And today he's my best friend. He calls me virtually every 2 to 3 months. He helped me and my family get out of the country on my parents' ancestral papers and help us back to the UK. He gave me multiple awards for the hard work I put in. So actually, my worst job turned out to be my best job. And that can happen to you too, if you just are able to be the solution. I was there from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day.
Wow.
But I loved it. And he just saw the hard work in me, and he was like, I'm going to fly you to London, and I'm going to help you to get your parents' ancestral papers, and I'm going to get you out, and I'm going to do whatever it took, whatever
Wow.
it takes to help you. And he changed my life.
Wow. That's amazing. It's
From one
amazing. It's
newspaper
amazing how you
ad.
can, sorry, it's amazing how you can look at that interview in two ways. And the way you chose to look at it was that was my worst interview, but it was also my best interview.
Yes, yes, it was. It turned out to be life changing. It turned out to be why I'm here today. It turned out why I managed to help my whole family across to come to this country. I I was being flown to San Francisco to receive very many awards from India, and the bank would only pay, from one destination to the other. And he called me and said, I'm going to fly you via London. And I said, it's not allowed. He said, I'm the CEO, I make the decisions. You're going to fly via London. And I was like, but what for? Even he was like, you told me the story of your parents. You told me how you all were left back in India. You told me, um, that your father's sister left, but your father chose to stay in India at the time of the British Raj. You told me your story, Jillian. Those papers, those ancestral papers are in England. I'm going to help you to get it. And I was like, but how do I do it? I don't even know what to do anymore. And he was like, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. So you go to the Home Office to get your grandparents' papers. You go to the British Library to get your parents' papers. I'm going to pay for all the searches. I'm going to pay for everything. And I'm going to pay to fly you out. I never expected that. I was just going to San Francisco to pick up some awards as the head of charity and diversity for the bank. I had no idea he was going to do this for me, but he changed my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. There's not very many times you'll meet a person like that.
No, and initially I had returned the appointment letter because he was known as the most feared personality in the country. And I heard that many people had left the bank because of him. And I thought, no, I don't want to go there, given who I was and what I was going through internally. But then the money was so attractive, I took the job, and it changed my life.
But there's a huge lesson behind that, isn't there? Around being uncomfortable in a place and deciding to do it anyway,
Yes.
and
Yes.
how much that has changed you as a person, your family's life, your life, and many hundreds of thousands of people that you now are able to go out and speak to
Yes.
back in India.
Yes. That's why I love the book, feel the fear and do it anyway. You feel that fear,
Yeah.
but if you can get yourself to cross that hurdle and just do it, and believe in yourself and know that I can do any amount of hard work and that'll get me through, it will get you through.
Absolutely. Jillian, this has been absolutely fantastic today. I have been blown away and inspired, and I know our listeners will have taken so much away. Trying to summarize what we have just discussed is going to be an absolute feat for me to do, but I'm going to try to do that now
Thank you.
and pull out some of the three of the most amazing messages that our listeners can take away and do something with.
Sure.
The first one is about preparation. So failing to prepare and preparing to fail. It is so
Yes.
important. Even what you'd said around the perfume, the particular hairstyles, all of this all can be seen, can all be heard if you do your right research, if you go and prepare yourself, if you have your go-to bag as such, even have a go-to interview bag where you have
Yes.
your water, your notepad with your questions you're going to
Yes.
ask your interviewer, your pen, a couple of extra pound in case you need to get a bus or a train or a taxi,
Yes.
an extra shirt, which I always carry with me in case I spill something on it before I get there.
Yes.
Just being prepared will make you more successful than not
Yes.
being prepared. The second thing is that people in interviews are actually selling themselves, and it's trying to get that understanding through to interviewees or candidates that you're there to sell yourself, not just what you've did, not what you're going to do, but you're there to sell yourself as a person, because you wouldn't be at an interview had you not the skill set, the knowledge, the experience, the criteria, or you haven't met the criteria, you wouldn't be there, because interviewers' times are precious, so they wouldn't waste that time.
Yeah.
However, when you're there, you have to sell, and you have to sell hard. And what I mean by sell is you have to sound like you're confident, you know what you're talking about, and that you're going to be a solution. And that brings me to my third and final. And what has been running through this whole interview is be the solution. Be that person that is going to solve that challenge or problem. Because if you can do that, you will rise very quickly in the role, potentially further up the ladder, and you'll get that job much easier than the next person who is not being the solution, is potentially being another problem. Companies don't need
Yes.
another problem. They do not. So Jillian, that has been absolutely fantastic today. Those takeaways have been just, wow, absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for your time. If our listeners want to reach out, Jillian, or find out more about you, where can they do that?
My website is there, Kevin. But firstly, I'd like to say the pleasure was all mine. Talking to you was equally inspirational, and what you do is so great, especially in our world today. You know, for the younger generation, especially, I think it's phenomenal what you do. So, thank you again for that. But where I can be contacted is on my website. It's just www.jillianhaslam.com. But otherwise, I'm on all social media sites. I'm on LinkedIn and everywhere. And if I can be of any help or assistance, it's available.
That's superb. Thank you very much, Jillian. And for everybody out there, we will put all of Jillian's contact details into the show notes that you can have a look at and reach out as and when. But Jillian, thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on today.
Pleasure was all mine, Kevin. Thank you again.
For more details about our guest, or if you would like to be a guest, go to www.interviewskillscoach.co.uk/my-worst-interview-ever, or find us on Facebook or LinkedIn. And remember, on the other side of a successful interview is the life you deserve.